Supergirl Season 2, Episode 8, Medusa. Now, this episode, technically, even though it hardly had anything to do with it, this was technically the first part of the four-night crossover. I kind of feel bad for people that may have watched this episode who normally don't watch Supergirl, where it's like, oh man, they're doing the big crossover. You know, a lot of people, it's like, alright, I watch The Flash. Typically, that's what I hear, is like, I watch The Flash, but I don't watch, like, anything else. So it's like, I watch The Flash, or I only watch Arrow, or so I don't know how, but I only watch one of these shows, so I have to watch like every other show in order to kind of get the whole series kind of crossover thing. And honestly, I kind of feel bad for people that felt like they had to do that for this episode because it had nothing to do with the crossover. So I still think it was a good episode. But for people who aren't like me, where I've been watching the show since the first season and I actually like the series itself, people who may have seen this would have been probably annoyed if you were watching this and it's like, I had to check this out because it's the beginning of the four-part crossover. And really, it wasn't. It was like, you know, it had its hints. It like technically it started like in the beginning of the episode when they all having Thanksgiving dinner, of course, and the portal opens up. It's like, okay, that was Barry trying to do the thing. I thought he was gonna jump in the beginning and it would be him, in Supergirl the whole time, which I thought would have been awesome. But, but that didn't happen. And then they have the Flash at the, later in the episode. And then eventually, Barry and Cisco do actually end up, on whatever Earth, Kara is on. And I was like, man, this was like the last 2 minutes of the episode, or last, really, maybe minute of the episode. And that was where the crossover truly started. And I was just thinking, like, wow, there's like kind of no reason for them to consider this a four-part crossover, but I guess technically, since she is going into their shows, and technically they did jump over to hers, it is part of the four-part crossover. But for like 1% of the entire crossover out of these next 3 episodes, it was Supergirl, because it was like, oh, let's jump in at the end of the episode and say, hey, need your help. So I just thought that was funny, and I just wanted to talk about that before I got into the rest of the review, because I'm sure, I can almost guarantee that there's some people out there that were like, alright, well, I don't watch Supergirl, maybe I don't even watch Legends of Tomorrow or something, which highly recommend. I like all the shows, but if there's one that I have to recommend that I feel like people might not be watching, it's Legends. Like, I know a lot of people have trailed off of Arrow for admittedly fairly good reason. I think this season's actually picking up compared to what they did with the last season. So if you thought you'd leave it alone, I suggest getting back into it this season. It's actually been pretty good. But pretty much it's like everybody watches Flash. Everybody used to watch Arrow. Nobody seems to really care about Supergirl or Legends of Tomorrow, both of which I think are good. Legends, I really love. Legends might be like my number one, honestly, out of all 4 shows. As much as I love the Flash, because he's honestly my favorite out of all the heroes. Like, out of all of DC, I always love Flash the most. Even with that, like, just sometimes, some of the episodes that Legends does, they're just, like, phenomenal freaking episodes sometimes. Like, every once in a while, they just do something and it's like, man, I freaking love this. And some of the stuff they do, because they jump through time, like, just real-world stuff and things like that. That's kind of why I love that show so much. So I highly recommend it. If you don't watch Legends, definitely check it out, because it's really sweet. But going into the rest of Supergirl, this was a good episode. I thought the idea that Kara, found out the truth about her father, where he gives that sort of typical line where it's like, I was saving lives, like, our lives, that sort of thing. I was like, that's interesting. She finds out that her father wasn't the amazing, guy that she thought he was. He was a dangerous man, in a sense, at least. And I thought that worked. I was like, I like this idea that she had, like, I think like everyone does with their parents when they're really young, you have this very perfect image because you kind of see what you want to see. You don't see everything because your parents kind of shield you from that sort of stuff. And of course, her parents and the entire planet being blown up also added to that. She has this image her whole life growing up on Earth. Like, this is what my parents used to do, and this is what they did, and they used to help people. And then she finds out that this poison is insanely deadly to any other species that isn't Kryptonian. And of course, it's altered just a little bit by I'm not gonna call him Cyborg Superman. I really don't want to, so I'm just gonna call him Hank Henshaw. Um, so it's altered by him to affect, other aliens and also spare human lives as well. So I thought that was cool. I was like, all right, that I think is an interesting thing to have stolen from, the Fortress of Solitude. So they go through this whole issue where they have to deal with that. Also, something I noticed about this episode, even I know they aren't going to do this too often, but I thought this was actually would have been a good episode for Superman to really come in. Like I felt this was something that really could have brought all the characters together. Like this affects all alien, species and stuff. I thought this would have been like the one of the perfect episodes to have him come in and be like, hey, this is like that's almost like his crux. It's like, hey, this is like every single life is going to be destroyed due to discrimination and that sort of thing. I'm like, this is basically textbook Superman issue, and I feel like this actually would have been like the perfect episode to have him kind of guest star. But I was like, man, that kind of sucks. I feel like this would have been a good one considering Superman. This is definitely his sort of story, but still thought it was fun. The way they go through all the issues and stuff, and Mon-El is sick in this episode, but they also have like super random hint. It like who knows where it's headed. I thought this was gonna have to do with the crossover, but it doesn't. But we have these random people in space. They're just on a ship somewhere. It's like, yeah, we couldn't find that Kryptonian ship, and they're like, we'll keep searching because we're gonna find, Mon-El of Daxam. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. I thought they were gonna be the aliens. That wasn't the case. That had nothing to do with the crossover or anything like that. That's just something for when Supergirl gets back to being Supergirl. We got something. Some people are coming for Mon-El, so I'm excited for that. Don't know if they're Daxamites or what the case may be. It would be interesting if they were, and I feel like this is just kind of an obvious story that they could do. They might be going after Mon-El and blaming him for the death of the prince because they're like, you were supposed to protect him and let him live, but instead you selfishly, saved your own life or something like that. I feel like that's kind of the simple answer. Like that could easily be it. There are other Daxamites that survived, and one of them saw what happened and they just didn't see it for the way that it really happened, and or maybe Mon-El lied. That could be another thing that we find out. That would be interesting, but I thought that was cool. I was like, all right, that's a nice hint. Sadly, it didn't involve the crossover like I thought with the whole alien thing, but still very cool. So I am excited for that to come into play. They had a lot to do with Alex in this episode, which I thought was really good. They had her coming out to her mother, which I thought was a good scene. And I swear to God, I can never remember this woman's name, but the woman that she's officially with now, she realizes like, hey, I almost died today, and it kind of made me come to terms with how I truly felt about you and stuff like that. So they are together, which I thought was really nice. Um, and I was glad that they kind of did that with Alex's character in this episode. I didn't think it would be a big part of it. Mostly going into it, I thought way more stuff was going to have to do with the crossover, so I was wasn't really expecting anything as far as like actual development from like the main Supergirl characters. I thought it would just be like, hey, crossover stuff, pause on all the important things. But it was good. I like that. And she talked with her mom, and she was it was really difficult for her, but her mom accepted it and was like, hey, like she said it before, Alex even says like, you being gay wouldn't be an issue to me and stuff like that. So that's a really great scenes with her. I really like what they did with her these past couple episodes, and now she actually is with this agent and stuff like that, so they've worked things out. So I thought that was pretty cool. They decided not to, well, really Alex decided not to let Win and Jimmy, tell Kara the truth. So that's on pause for a little bit. She kind of put that on pause herself, like, no, she's not that understanding, and she kind of shut him down, like, like, you need to sit down right now. So that's still up in the air. We don't know when that's going to happen. We have the kiss, of course, between Mon-El and Kara. And naturally, I kind of hated this at the end because they did like the super typical, TV drama teen thing. And it's like, oh, this thing happened, but you don't remember. And I'm not going to tell you, even though I totally want it to happen. And it made me mad. I was just like, everybody always does that. It's like, oh, I don't remember what happened. And maybe he did remember because he looked at her, and it could have been, he looked at her, like, something's up, like, something more than me drooling on myself happened, or he looked at her because he still remembers. So either way, it was kind of annoying to me. I was like, I can't believe they did that super typical thing just to hold it off. Like, I don't know. It's just like, just let it happen. Like, she enjoyed it. I mean, he was drugged up, but obviously we know that he likes her. So why not just let it happen? But she was embarrassed, so she just let it go. And I was kind of annoyed by that, but I was like, whatever, I'll let it pass. But other than that, I really liked this episode. One other thing I was like half disappointed by it was actually Jean being cured at the end of the episode, because he actually embraced the White Martian thing, where he turned into the physical form of a White Martian, but he was still green. I love that scene. I was like, that's kind of awesome, because he embraced it, and it was like, it's something so drastically different for him to experience. I thought it was awesome. And then it was like, oh yeah, we saved Mon-El and also cured him. And I was like, oh, that kind of sucked. I was like, I thought that would have been really cool if he had to deal with that, even if it wasn't permanent, at least for a much longer time. And I was like, oh, he finally embraced it by the end of the episode to fight Hank Henshaw, and then he instantly got cured right after. And I was like, oh, that kind of sucks, because I thought that was pretty cool, because he could have done what McGann did, where it's like that's his true form now, but he could still change himself into the Green Martian form that we know. So I was kind of hoping that's where they would go with it, at least for a little bit, like I said. But it was just like, yeah, he did it once, so that was a cool thing to have. But he's cured now, so that's it. And I was like, oh, that kind of sucks, because he decided to embrace it. And I was like, that's actually cool, because just all the mental stuff that he'd have to go through to embrace that part of him, I thought was really cool. And it's still cool, but I would have loved to have seen it just last a little bit longer. So that was like the other thing that I was just like, oh, that kind of sucked that it happened, that he got cured so fast. But really good. Lena Luthor was awesome, because I was like, oh crap, now I gotta hate her. And then it turns out she ratted on her mom and called the cops, and I was like, well done. I was like, that was very well played, and I actually did a slow clap. I was like, that was just really well done. I wasn't expecting it. She went full Luthor, and then we found out it was a trick. So love that. Her mom gets arrested, which I'm assuming is why they did the hint for the aliens. Maybe now that Cadmus is on pause because her mom's been arrested, the aliens, looking for Mon-El can come in, and they'll be like the main threat for a couple episodes or whatever. But I thought this was a good one. I'm excited to see where it goes. I don't know if I don't think they're doing another episode after this 4-part crossover. They probably are, but all the trailers have all been for the crossover thing, so I don't really know if we're going to get another episode that's the mid-season finale. I'm hoping we do, because this just led into the crossover, and then that's it. So I'm assuming we will next week. But I thought this was actually a really good episode. I actually really enjoyed what they did with it, the character development and the emotions and stuff like that. I actually really had a good time with this episode. The action was good too, but I just enjoyed it. I was like, this was actually a cool episode. It was just fun, nothing to do with the crossover really until the end. But I was like, I really enjoyed the development that they had. Just my two little nitpicks, what they did with the relationship part. At least Kara's relationship, Alex's thing, I thought was great. And then them curing Jean right after he decided to embrace it. I was like, oh, that sucks. But that was really it. Those were the only two things I didn't like. The Hank Henshaw thing, overall, I kind of don't like, but I was fine with it this episode. I was like, I just accept it at this point, and it's just like, whatever. Turns out he can fly too, because that was one thing I was wondering with the Fortress of Solitude thing. I think I mentioned that, like, did he fly there? Did he run there? What happened? So he does have the ability to fly and stuff. So we're seeing more and more abilities as they go on, because he did the laser beam and stuff like that. But fun episode, I thought. Of course, would love to know what you guys thought about it. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, and I actually want to know your theories on who these aliens are and why they want Mon-El. Did he, is his story true? Did he actually push the prince out of the way to save himself? Was he lying? I want to know what you guys think really happened, and like I said, what you guys thought about the episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.